It's always a little extra juice playing primetime. Everybody's watching. Playing a division opponent. That's where we're. What Coach Vrabel seems where we want to go. Where we want to be at. The Bills have been the past couple of years and contenders and winning the division and playing well at home. They've won, I think you said 14 straight, if that's right, but at home. So it's a tough environment and like I said, they're a great football team with some great players. So we got our hands full, but I think we're excited. Anytime you're on primetime and you kind of waiting the whole day for the game and under the lights. So it'll be pretty sweet.
Foxborough Rush on a Friday, primetime on a Sunday. That's where the Patriots will find themselves up in Buffalo to take on those 4-0 Buffalo Bills. Keagan Stiefel, Jade McCarthy here with you. And, okay, look, I would be remiss if I didn't mention primetime last night and a former Patriot quarterback who lit it up under those lights, Keagan.
Yeah, didn't watch. All eyes on the Red Sox last night. Second TV was off. Mac Jones will not get these eyes on him, no matter what. Nope. It needed a much needed break on the left side, so we kept that one off. We watched the Red Sox. They blew it. They looked absolutely horrendous. So early bedtime.
How about the kid from Walpole who pitched a gem?
Yeah,
he did.
And he was.
Give him credit.
Very cocky about it afterwards, which he has a fan in me, because if you're gonna go out there and do it, you might as well shove it down people's faces a little bit too.
Oh man, it was funny. I was sitting there looking at my husband, going, that you become a professional and all those things happen, but you grew up in Walpole, like you're clearly a Sox fan. Come on, so
right.
to sit there and then all those years later knock them out in one of the best postseason games that the way it all came together.
The Red Sox and Yankees just can't help themselves. Like, they can't just play a normal postseason series. There's always something, even in the regular season. There's always something, and it's a great storyline. It's good for people like us because we have plenty to talk about.
This is true. He pitched a gem, man. But hey, look, maybe you didn't watch it, but that former Patriots quarterback, Mac Jones, looked pretty good out there, dealing with a knee injury that was bugging him clearly and, found his way to win a third one. Don't roll your eyes. Look, give credit where credit is due. Come on. And where I will give him credit is he was asked post-game, should you be the starter of this team? And he was like, I was brought here to be the backup, and this is Brock's team. And all I know is, if I can help get him some wins along the way, it might be the difference between sitting at home and playing in the postseason. So I give him credit for the way in which he answered the question after the game as well. I mean, you brought up the postgame in New York. I had to bring up the postgame out there on the West Coast. Let's get to the Patriots, of course. They got a big tilt coming our way Sunday night. As I said, they head up to Buffalo to take on the Bills. Speaking of primetime, it's Drake Maye's first primetime affair. I'm going to be curious how he starts, because we've seen him a little amped up, a little overexcited to start some games, and just knowing that you're under the lights and you've been waiting all day to get out there. Some of the things that he talked about there, Keagan, I'm going to be very watching intently to see how he specifically starts in this game.
Yeah, I think this is kind of the biggest in terms of the environment and the atmosphere. This is the biggest game he's played in so far as a pro. So there are going to be a lot of eyes early on him, at least for me. We see it at 1:00 against Carolina, overthrows and the feet aren't getting set. And he's not quite comfortable early in the game. He's got to kind of get rid of those pregame jitters. Sunday Night Football, you're in Orchard Park. You're playing against the best team in football right now. That's a big atmosphere to go into, especially as a guy who's still young in his career, still, within the first 15 or so starts. So I'll be interested to see how he looks early. I think he's done a really good job throughout his early career of settling in, but that first quarter, it could be the difference, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, and Buffalo's doing this whiteout, of course. They're wearing these all white Nike unis, and Pagula, is a big Penn Stater, like big supporter there. So they're taking the whiteout from Happy Valley and State College and bringing it to Orchard Park, I guess, for this one.
That
But
might be
Steph
might be
Diggs,
good news
go
for
ahead.
New England. That Penn State historically fumbles away all of those games. They haven't won one in about 15 years. So good news for New England, I guess.
Well, they won one against Auburn, but that was probably about 5 years ago. But still, yes,
Yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. Look, there's certainly one member of the Patriots who knows all about what it's like to play in Buffalo, what it's like to play when the crowd gets going there. So Steph Diggs talked a little bit about how New England can control this to the best of their ability. Let's listen to the former Buffalo Bill.
It's crazy because, being on the other side of it, I witnessed it multiple times, week in and week out, just being on the other side. So going in there and only way you can control the environment is staying in the green, getting behind the 8. The fans and everybody else, they feed off it, just like any fan base, but that fan base in particular, they're going to look to be rowdy on certain downs, on early downs, and put you in mistakes and put you in a bad spot. So going in there, and handling it well is going to be big for us. And, it's another test for us. I feel like we've had multiple tests throughout this season. Some of them we answered, some of them we didn't. We're going to do everything in our power to go in there with the right mindset. And, I've been there for a while, so I'm trying to give them everything, at least a little bit that might help.
Just give him a little bit that might help, right? I do like how you hear Steph, and whenever he talks, he's talking about, okay, we faced this test and we passed this one, or we faced this test and we didn't, and now we got to make it better. I like the way he is taking it in terms of, and I talk about this all the time, but like building that foundation, right? And there's all these little mini tests that you have to take throughout the course of the season. And he knows, he's been around the block in this league. You got to find ways to pass the test. And if you don't, you better not fail the same test twice.
Yeah, he's on his third test with playing with a young quarterback kind of early in the that player's development, as well as the development of the franchise on their way up. He did it with Buffalo. He was kind of there with Houston last year. Obviously, CJ Stroud had a great rookie year, but still playing with a young quarterback, and he's doing it again this year. And I think he's approached it the best this season that he has, the first 2 times. Third time's the charm when it comes to him, because it really has been I'm here to not only help this quarterback develop and become the player that we all think he can be, but get all of the weapons around him, including himself, but the younger players like Kyle Williams and Efton Chisholm, who really haven't played yet. He's talked a lot about trying to get them up to speed so they can really be a full unit and give Drake Maye as many, options as possible moving forward. So I think he's done a great job, and it clearly helps that he knows what this environment's going to be like on Sunday, because a lot of these guys on this Patriots roster, they haven't played in games that are going to have this much juice.
Yeah, no, they haven't. And, he can sit there and talk about it and try to tell them what it's going to be like.
Right.
Going into it and experiencing it, obviously, is something that's entirely different. But look, I mean, the more he can prepare them for it, the better they're going to be. And that sort of leads me to this, the way that the Patriots have prepared Steph Diggs for this season, Keagan, right? I mean, you look at his snap count, weeks 1 through 3, it was like less than 55% of offensive snaps. Obviously, that jumped up in week 4 to over 60% against Carolina. Maybe if it hadn't been the game that it was and the blowout that it was against the Panthers, he would have found himself in there more. But obviously had that first game over 100 receiving yards. That was something that, check box, got to feel good to get that done. But this all feels, very methodical by the Patriots with how they wanted to handle Steph Diggs along the way. And it does feel like they have him exactly where they wanted to have him to get ready to go into Orchard Park.
Yeah, we see it, every year with every single football team. On paper, the best unit might look one way, and then what it actually is out on the field is a completely different thing. Stefon Diggs is their best wide receiver, and they thought they could plug him into the spot where they didn't have quite as much talent. Pop Douglas has been a good slot receiver for this team for a few years. he was going to hold on to that spot. Kayshon Boutte and Matt Collins are those veterans on the outside, and they really wanted to kind of pigeonhole him into the spot that they had left over, and it just wasn't quite working. And we know at this point in his career, what he can do better than anybody else is read a defense, find the soft spot in a zone, and be a security blanket for the quarterback. And he wasn't in a position to do that in the first few weeks of the season. They said, screw it. We need a guy out there that's going to give Drake Maye just easy targets, get open, get the yards that we need for first. I mean, he's been their best third and fourth down receiver all year. So they finally kind of just shifted. Demario Douglas isn't on the field, and he's still a good player. He's made a couple mistakes this year, but he's not on the field because right now it's just not the best look for this team. And now that Diggs is in that spot, he's going to continue to see more opportunities throughout the year.
Yeah, and you look at statistically, like league wide, he's number one in catches per target, right? I mean,
right.
So the
19 for
opportunities
22,
that
I
he's
believe.
getting, yeah, he is making the most of them, which is exactly what you want to see him do. And to your point, then if you're, the wide receiver coach, if you're Josh McDaniels, you're going to say, okay, let's get him the ball more. He's clearly, taking it and running with it. So let's find ways to continue to do that and build upon it. He's on pace for just over 900 yards this season. And as I said, he had a more limited snap count in the earlier games. So you would expect that to go up. And you got to go back a ways to find the last time we had a 1,000-yard receiver. I mean, you know this as well as I do. He just got inducted into the Patriots Hall of Fame. So you got to go back to Edelman. I mean, it's been a long time. But I think it's twofold the way that we're seeing Steph contribute to this team. Obviously, we're starting to see it more so on the field. But we're also seeing it with that veteran leadership and with that knowledge that he's learned, during his time in Buffalo, during his time as limited as it was in Houston, and taking that and saying, okay, like I've been given this ability to get back out here and to feel as good as I do from a health perspective, knowing that he had a major injury just 1 year ago. And now I'm going to find ways to do what I can on the field, but also do what I can to help everybody else do what they can on the field. Because he's recognized that that's the only way this game works.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big test too, just with the environment that they're going to be in. The competitive juices are going to be flowing. And he's a guy, and he said it. I think his teammates have said it. You've never really heard a bad thing about Stefon Diggs as a teammate. It's just been like, he doesn't harness that competitive nature the way that maybe they would want him to, right? It's the outbursts. It's kind of like the temper tantrums. We haven't seen any of that in New England. We didn't really see it last year in Houston. A lot of it in Buffalo, a lot of it in Minnesota. Yeah. So in a stage where it's going to feel familiar to him, it's going to feel like it did back in Buffalo in the late stages of his career in Minnesota. Can he continue to approach it the right way, especially with, like we've talked about, young teammates, specifically in the receiver room, a young quarterback? If he starts to harp on some of the stuff that he did prior, you're going to see some regression, I think. But if he can, harness it and really show that he's grown into a leader and not just a really good football player, and those guys get tasked with being leaders, but somebody who is a leader on this football team, that's when you're going to see the next step being taken.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I do think that, to go back to the way he likes to put things, at this moment in time, he's passing that test. I think he is doing the right things. I think he's saying the right things. I think he is being a leader on this team. And sometimes it just takes time, right? It takes years in the league. It takes some maturity. It takes experiencing and witnessing and being a part of certain things for that to happen. Other guys manage to walk into this league and be leaders from go. But I don't know that is exactly everybody who walks through the door. I think that a lot of people have to learn from experience in order to figure out exactly how to be the leader that maybe they want to be earlier than they actually can be. All right, let's take a look at the run game. Obviously, we all know that Josh Allen can beat you, 6 different ways till Sunday. That's just what he's done in this league. But James Cook obviously has been a big motor on this Buffalo team as well. Got the contract after the mini little stand-in during, training camp. Mike Vrabel talked a little bit about what James Cook means to this Buffalo team.
Because he's a good player. They got good guys blocking for him. I think the tight ends have done a really nice job. And then I think his vision and his patience and burst, he just, everybody's at the point of attack. He runs where you're not. And if you have bad discipline or you don't chase your gap when it's moving away from you, he's going to come back and find it. So it's really been a nice back for him, and is just taking care of the football with the amount of carries that he's had.
Yeah, sure is. And we all know how that goes. Got to take care of the football. It's certainly something that the New England backs are going to have to do in this game. But I would argue that they're also going to have to find a way to slow James Cook and everything that he's done, right? I mean, you look at all the yards he's racked up on the ground. And again, you look at this Buffalo run game, it's tops in the league. You got to find a way to limit it in order to hang in there with Buffalo come Sunday night.
Yeah, it's a big week for the do your job crowd, right? The Patriots have really struggled with missed tackles, blown assignments, penalties. It's been the stuff that gets themselves beat. It really hasn't been other teams doing much of anything against them, just like we've talked about, right? So this week, in a game where that they're going to try to run the ball down your throat because that's what they do best, assignments need to be, handled properly, and these linebackers are going to have to make these tackles. Like the most missed tackles in football, you can't be considered a good football team if you have the most missed tackles in football, and that's what the Patriots have right now. So this is a big week for them against this running back, against this quarterback, to show that they can keep themselves in a football game. They can keep their offense in a football game. Beyond the first, second quarter, these slow starts, or playing a team like Carolina where you end up blowing them out because they're doing all the same things that you've been doing throughout the year. So big game for fundamentals, for the high school football coaches out there watching. This is a big one. You can show your kids, hey, this is what you want to do. This is what you don't want to do.
Let's hope they're on the side of this is what you want to do when this one is all said and done Sunday night. You mentioned, of course, the quarterbacks. And look, I mean, we all know where Josh Allen wants to go. The Bills are probably in the early going, quarter pole of the season, in the best position to get that one seed in the AFC that they haven't managed to be able to get. And maybe that's the difference maker for them. Obviously, he wants to go play for a Super Bowl. This team wants to go play for a Super Bowl, and they just haven't been able to, get the magic sauce together to get past Kansas City. But, you have Josh Allen at that point in his career. You have Drake, obviously, his sophomore season, really trying to ultimately become who Josh Allen has become to Buffalo. That's what Drake wants to become here in New England. Let's listen to the two quarterbacks as they sound off a little bit on each other.
Yeah, we got the same agency, so during Super Bowl, we spent some time together and just getting to know him and his fiance at the time. Obviously, he's married now, and we were both engaged at the same time. Got married shortly thereafter, and just a really down-to-earth human being. Got a really good head on his shoulders. Does things the right way. And he plays the game the right way, in my opinion. And he's only getting better. So he's a fun one to watch.
Of him as a quarterback, what stands out about maybe if you've seen him this year, how he's developed?
Yeah, I mean, I think he spins it as good as anybody in the league. His mechanics are really good, and to be that big and move the way he does, it's impressive.
I got to know him, through the same agency. Got to know him, and we share a lot of the same things. We like playing golf, and just hopefully, he's very down to earth. I like to say I'm down to earth, but he's a great player. Golly, it's fun watching him. He makes some plays, every week that you're like, man, that's pretty cool. So he's the MVP of the league, and sadly to say it's fun to watch him, but we got to play him on Sunday, so it's a little different mindset.
I love when you listen to guys and they use the same words to describe each other, right?
Yep. Yeah, it was the compliment fest. They couldn't get over themselves, and you couldn't see me obviously when they were playing that Drake Maye sound, but every time he says golly, I giggle. I think it's the funniest thing in the world because he loves spewing that word. It might be his favorite word, and he hits the spam button with that one. It's very funny.
He also pulls it off, though, right? I mean, how many people do you know can say golly and manage to pull it off?
That is a Southern man right there. Like, no question about it. I think you could plop him in the middle of England and ask somebody where he's from, and they'll probably say North Carolina, because he is North Carolina to a T.
Yeah, through and through, through and through. Oh, goodness. A little North Carolina up here in New England these days. That's just the way
That's
it's going to be. That's just the way it's going to be. All right. We got much more to come here on Foxborough Rush. We're going to head up to Buffalo, go boots on the ground to find out what things feel like and what it sounds like around the Buffalo Bills and their locker room. So stick around for that. We also have a little 4th and long going on. We'll explain that one as we continue. Stick around. Foxborough Rush coming at you just after 1 o'clock Eastern. Remember, come next week, you got to rewind it because we'll be here at 10 a.m.
Sean, you're obviously familiar with Stefon. How do you see him in this offense, this scheme, and coming off a pretty serious injury?
Yeah, very impressed. Not surprised, but very impressed in terms of how he looks. He looks great. Very few can come off of an injury like that from a timing standpoint, especially that first year, and look the way he looks. So, but I'm not surprised. He's a heck of an athlete, and he works extremely hard.
Jay Skurski with the Buffalo News covers the Bills, joining us now on Foxborough Rush. And Jay, I know that's a voice familiar to you, hearing Sean McDermott talk about a former member of the Bills in Steph Diggs, who now is, trying to shed some light to these young Patriots as to what it's like to walk in and play in Buffalo and all the noise and the crowd and the prime time and all those things. What's sort of the sentiment in Buffalo going into this game Sunday night?
I think, well, it's interesting. First of all, they're doing a whiteout game. They're doing a kind of a cold front game when the temperature is going to be 80 degrees on Sunday. So they mistimed that one just a little bit. But no, I think it'll be a cool atmosphere. I know that the players are excited about these new jerseys. We were kind of talking a little bit before we went live here. The primetime games are nothing new for the Bills. This is their third one out of 4 home games at this point in the season. So the atmosphere, Stefon Diggs knows it well, right? He was a big part of it. And so, yeah, I'm sure his teammates, his younger teammates, will be leaning on him a little bit to kind of wonder, what exactly they are going to be walking into in Orchard Park. But I do think, in terms of, the divisional matchup, there's more at stake here for the Patriots than there is for the Bills. That's just the reality of it. But this is a game that I think the Bills can really put a chokehold on the division race really early in the season if they're able to win it. And so there is that to play for the Bills. I mean, it's two franchises at 2 different points. The Bills right now, their number one goal is the number 1 seed in the AFC. And to get that, they need to keep winning. It's in front of them. There's a clear path to it. So in that aspect, every game is important.
In a game, Jay, where, like you said, it's kind of old hat for the Bills. They've been here before. The environment is what it is. They're going to introduce the new jerseys, and Nike's going to fatten their pockets, but it's going to be exciting for the fan base, obviously. Coming in, obviously, Stefon Diggs' perspective, but just from thinking back to a few years ago when the Bills were a young team and they had a young quarterback, and maybe they were entering a different atmosphere at a different point, early in the season, it's going to kind of be a culture shock. How would you expect that to impact not only the Patriots, but maybe the Bills, and knowing that this team that they're playing this week is going to try to play up to a different level than they have this season?
Well, I mean, I think if you're Mike Vrabel, right, you are using this game as a measuring stick for where New England is in his first season, right? I mean, there's a lot to prove for the Patriots here. They can really make a statement that, I don't know that they're going to be a serious challenger for the division, but if they win this game, they're a game behind Buffalo with the head-to-head tiebreaker. And so I think what it would do, though, for sure, is establish New England as a bona fide playoff contender if they were able to come into Buffalo and get a win. And so, yeah, they are a younger team, certainly, with a lot of new pieces that they're still working into the lineup in terms of, their free agent additions and everything. And Drake Maye is a young quarterback, but I was really impressed with what he did here in the game last year in Orchard Park that the Bills were huge favorites in and barely won. And so I think New England has played the Bills pretty tough and has reason to have some confidence coming into this game.
What do you think New England would have to do and do really well in order, for this to be close at the end with them to have a chance to walk out with the win?
They can't turn it over. The Bills feast on turnovers.
We know that.
26, yeah, 26 games in a row, the Bills have not lost the turnover battle. It's an NFL record. It's remarkable. So, in the evolution of Josh Allen, probably the most impressive piece of it has been, he comes into this league as this kind of unbridled, kind of wild quarterback who's going to make the splash play, but then is also going to make the head-scratching turnover at times. Well, he has eliminated that from his game entirely. The Bills simply don't beat themselves. And so, when you look at New England, I know their running backs have had some issues with fumbling. Like if they're going to have any chance in this game, they can't do that. They have to play a very clean game. And I think if they do that, that will allow them to hang in there, because the Bills' offense is not this, we're going to get the ball and we're going to score in 2 minutes. It's, they go through the ground right now with James Cook. And so the Bills will have some longer drives and some longer possessions. Doing that, of course, you're not going to necessarily run away from a team. But if New England turns the ball over, especially in their own end, or if they don't end drives, with touchdowns, if they settle for field goals, that's not a way to keep up with Josh Allen.
Yeah.
You talked about Josh Allen kind of being a little turnover happy early in his career. We've seen a little bit of that out of Drake Maye. It's come way down, obviously, in the early part of this season. But I wonder, kind of going back to who Josh Allen was, let's say, in the first 2 years of his career, compared to who Drake Maye has shown himself to be in the first 2 years of his career. Are there any, comparisons that you see? And maybe are there things that they do differently that do separate them? Because they get compared to each other a lot. I don't necessarily know if that's fair to either at this point.
That's lofty. I mean, I think it's a disservice to Drake Maye, right? Let him be his own quarterback. Let him be.
Yeah,
I think it happens to a lot of these quarterbacks that come into the league, because Allen was maybe the most polarizing prospect in the draft in the last decade, right? There were people that loved him, that thought he should be the number 1 overall pick, and then people that thought he wasn't a first-round talent because of his college stats. And, his development is remarkable in a lot of different ways. And so to put that pressure on Drake Maye, I don't think is fair. I understand the arm talent is there, and I understand the mobility. That's maybe the area of Allen's game that he didn't get nearly enough credit for. And we saw him rely on that a lot early in his career, was that ability when there wasn't anything there to scramble and make plays with his legs. I don't know that Drake, I don't have his rushing stats in front of me. I don't know that he's done that to the level that Allen did, but I know it's a part of his game. So I would just tell anyone, who's watching Drake Maye and who's in his second season to just cool it on the comparisons, right? Let the guy be his own quarterback. Let him come into his own. Asking him to become the next Josh Allen isn't fair to him, because that we've not seen a growth in a quarterback in a long time like Allen, right? From where he was as a prospect to the league MVP. And that's asking very, very much. And I would say that of any young quarterback, not just Drake Maye.
Yeah, I think it's so hard, right? I mean, this is a league and this is a world in which everybody is so quick to be like, okay, give me the comp. Like, who am I looking at, And they throw statistics up, and we'll do that too, because, why not? We have them for you. But it is one of those things where you start to run this comp and say, let me see, where do they stack up? And right, like this is this season. You look at some of the completion percentage, passage yards, passing touchdowns. Obviously, Drake Maye, has one more interception in this one, but the rushing yards, to your point, you were just saying, I'm not exactly sure where Drake Maye comes in, Jay, and you can see obviously Josh Allen, trumps him there, and one more rushing touchdown. But again, these are two quarterbacks that are in very different stages of development. And, you talked about this a little bit before, but the way in which we have seen Josh Allen learn to take care of the football, I think, and also the biggest growth that I feel like I've seen from him, Jay, and I'm curious for your thought on this, is that he doesn't go out there and feel like he constantly has to carry this team on his back. It used to feel like he felt like he always had to play hero ball. And that is certainly not what we've seen from him. And he still has the ability to do it. I don't think anybody doubts that. But I think it has made this Buffalo team more well-rounded, that he doesn't sort of go out with that mission the same way he maybe did when he was just a little bit younger.
You're spot on. I agree 100%. I mean, you look at, week one, the fourth quarter against the Ravens, he throws for 250 yards in the fourth quarter alone. So he can do it, right? I mean, make no mistake. He's the MVP for a reason. But, Allen has got the best offensive line that he's had in his 8 years in Buffalo in front of him right now. He's got a running back in James Cook, who I think is playing, if not the best in the NFL at his position, he's certainly in the conversation in the top 2 or 3. And so this is a Bills offense that says we can beat you any way you want. If you want to, stack the box and try to stop James Cook in the running game, well, okay, then take your chances with Josh Allen throwing it. If you want, we're going to cover and we're not going to let Josh Allen beat us, okay, well, then we're just going to run it, and we're going to run it again, and we're going to run it again. And so I think that's what makes this offense so incredibly difficult to not only defend, but also to predict how they're going to attack you, because they don't have a number one receiver. Stefon Diggs is no longer here, right? In any given week, it could be Dalton Kincaid, it can be Khalil Shakir, it can be Keon Coleman, who we saw in week one have a really big game. So they're very difficult to defend in that way. But to your original point about Allen and the hero ball, and that was a phrase that was used so often here in Buffalo, It's basically gone from his game. It rears its head once in a while. There'll be a time or two where he gets a little frustrated, and you see him try to, maybe put a ball in a spot that he shouldn't do it. Any quarterback's going to do that, though, right? But yeah, for the most part, he has pretty much eliminated that entirely from his game. It's a sign of, I believe, remarkable maturity. I think his mental game, for lack of a better phrase, is really caught up to his physical skills, and we know that those are top tier.
Jay, you mentioned Stefon Diggs. How big of a story is it, his return to Buffalo for the first time since he was traded the last April, whatever it might have been? Because it's a big story here. A lot of people are talking about it here.
It's interesting. I mean, we went around the locker room and talked to some guys about it, guys that he was teammates with and are still friends with. And as you would expect, they all had good things to say about him. The Bills did play against Diggs last year, even though that game was in Houston. So I think I think some of the reunion was kind of covered then. I do think for him personally, probably coming back into Buffalo, and I heard his interview there in New England this week. He sounded like it's going to be a kind of an emotional moment and scene for him. I mean, listen, Stefon Diggs was great when he was here for the Bills, and the circumstances surrounding his departure remain a bit murky. But I think both Josh Allen and Stefon Diggs can look at each other and say, you really helped elevate my career. I think Diggs came in and gave the Bills a number one receiver when Josh Allen probably needed that. And I think Josh Allen's development allowed Stefon Diggs to become this all-pro and to reach another level of stardom that maybe he hadn't even reached when he was in Minnesota. So I think it was a mutually beneficial relationship. I don't think that there should be much bad blood on either side. I mean, I know there'll be some boos because that's just what people do when players come back. But Diggs has been pretty complimentary about his time in Buffalo and with the Bills. And I think there'll be a fair amount of cheers too for him when he takes the field.
As you look at this current iteration of this Buffalo Bills team, and as you said, this is probably their best shot in the early going to be the 1 seed, right? Which is something that has been elusive to them. And maybe that's the difference maker that, all of a sudden you're playing at home in an AFC championship and you don't have to be on the road. And that's, that allows you to get over that hurdle and, go play for a Lombardi trophy, which we all know, like, that is the goal for this Bills team. And it has been for a couple of years now. But what would you say, having seen them through these 4 games, is their greatest weakness?
Well, if we're talking just generally, it's defense, right? They have a lot of questions defensively still. They have a lot of new parts defensively. They're dealing with injuries on that side of the ball. They've got 2 players who are serving 6-game suspensions here at the start of the year, who are still 2 weeks away from coming back, and who are new pieces. And so we don't know exactly how they're going to work into the lineup. They've got a young player in Cole Bishop at safety. They've got Joey Bosa, who was gotten off to a nice start here through the first 4 weeks. But in a lot of ways, they're still finding out who they are defensively and how they're going to come together. They've had issues on third down here early in the season getting off the field. Their run defense, you can just look at the Bears stats, are not pretty. They're 31st in the league defending the run at this point. So, and that's been the case in the playoffs, right? The reason that this team has lost in the playoffs, the past few years, however many really that you want to go back in losing, has mostly been the defense. And so, and for Sean McDermott, a defensive-minded head coach, he knows that, right? And that sticks with him. And so it's on him, honestly, to get this defense playing the best that it can. But that doesn't have to happen on October 5th. That has to happen in December and January for this team. So there's a bit of a long runway here, but that's going to be the challenge, is getting that defense ready for playoff football.
How do you see this one shaking out Sunday night?
Exactly. You got it.
Yeah. I'm taking the Bills in a close one. Listen, they haven't lost 14 games in a row at home in the regular season. They've scored at least 24 points in those games. They're a really, really tough out in Orchard Park. If they win on Sunday night, it'll tie a franchise record. And, the Bills had 4 years in a row of Super Bowls. So, they can tie a franchise record for consecutive home wins in the regular season. That being said, I expect the Patriots to come in here and give them a spirited game. I know the spread's like 7.5. I'm going to take New England with the points, but I will take the Bills to win it outright in maybe a 3 or 4 point game.
All right, Jay Skurski with the Buffalo News. Thanks for hanging with us on Foxborough Rush. We appreciate the time.
Anytime. Thank you for having me. Yep.
All right, much more Foxborough Rush coming your way. Stick around. We're back right after this. Foxborough Rush coming back at you on a Friday as we get set for primetime football here in New England Sunday night between the Bills and the Patriots. And, just chatted with Jay Skurski of the Buffalo News. And, a couple things that I really liked that he had to say, Keegan, right? Like, I loved that he was like, stop making comparisons. We live in this world of comparisons, and I can't stand them. They're like the thief. I always say they're the thief of joy. That's what I tell my kids all the time. I'm like, stop comparing. It is a thief of joy. But I loved when he said, let Drake Maye be his own person, be his own quarterback, like evolve into what he is going to be. Clearly, this is look, every game is important for Buffalo. They want that 1 seed, but I also thought he was spot on when he was like, look, all things considered, it probably means more if New England comes in here and wins this game to the Patriots as a franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all know where the Bills are at, and we all know where the Patriots are at. And I think it's a unique perspective knowing kind of that what the Patriots' current situation is very similar to what the Bills' situation was, let's say, 5 years ago. So,
totally.
Very great insight.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some of our keys to the game, what we're watching for. I alluded to one of them earlier, so I'll just lead off with that one, Keegan. But Drake Maye and really the way he starts this game, I think it's significant for the offense as a whole, for them to go out there and get off to a quick start. And I think it's significant for him as a player, right? I mean, he has only played in a handful of games in his NFL career, right? We've talked about that, and this is his first primetime game. We've also seen him, get a little excited and maybe be a little bit too amped up, and I wonder how he's going to manage that, how Josh McDaniels and like the entire team is going to manage that to make sure that he is in a place that's ready to go and not overly hyped leading into this game, which it's going to be loud there. We already know that it's going to be a whiteout, even though it's, a balmy 80 degrees or whatever it's going to be at kickoff in Buffalo. It feels very un-Buffalo-like, but I am very curious to see how Drake Maye handles that and how he comes out and looks to get things established consistently, confidently, and with that precision and not with that search for perfection in the early going.
Yeah, like Jay mentioned, turnover battle is going to be big, and it falls on his shoulders ultimately at the end of the day. I'm going to go with the only other guy that touches the ball on every play. Garrett Bradbury might be a weird pick for something like this, but I think with Jared Wilson returning to the starting lineup, which Mike Vrabel confirmed a little bit earlier on, you're going to see, that same unit that we saw throughout the first 3 weeks of the season. But is it the best unit for what they're going to be trying to do this week in Buffalo? I think we've mentioned it multiple times. They're going to want to run the football. They're going to want to bleed clock. And consistency in the run game has been a little bit of an issue, and I think it falls on his shoulders. He's been their worst run blocker throughout the early part of the season. Ben Brown, who played center last year, he played left guard last week, has been one of their better run blockers, really, over the last 2 seasons. So, you don't really want to mess with the configuration on the offensive line from week to week. Teams just don't do that. But I wonder if this unit with Garrett Bradbury in there instead of maybe a Ben Brown is really the best for what they're going to try to be doing. He's been great in pass protection. I fully understand that. You've got Ed Oliver on the other side. You need somebody to protect Drake Maye. Yeah. But if you're going to be running the ball 35, 40 times a game, maybe you want somebody else out there, handling the middle of that offensive line.
Yeah, and I think to what you said, the biggest thing is you don't want to be in this position where you're moving pieces in and out of your offensive line. Right. I mean, that's just not a position that any team wants to be in. The reality is if you can have the same exact offensive line start all 17 games of the season, that is exactly what you want, right. As a football team. And I mean, like, I think the Eagles did it last year, and it's just one of those things that it's so hugely beneficial to not have those moving parts that it is certainly worth watching. It's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out for the Patriots. And yeah, look, I mean, you got to protect the quarterback. We all know that. That is just go look at the Cincinnati Bengals, please. Like, that's all I'm going to say on that one. All right, give me the second thing that you're watching closely, or the second group or player that you're keeping tabs on.
Yeah, Dalton Kincaid is having the best season of his career. He's on a pace to break all of his previous career season high marks. So I'm looking for him. Not necessarily. I don't necessarily think he's going to be the top target or whatever that might be. But in a game where Buffalo might not have a ton of possessions, they're going to have to keep the ball. They're going to have to make them count. So third downs, fourth downs, looking to your tight ends, looking to your running backs. The Patriots have been horrible covering those guys throughout the first few weeks of the season. So can they take Dalton Kincaid really out of the equation, take away one of the top targets on those later downs for Josh Allen? I think that's going to be key for them. I wonder if the Patriots do make a change at linebacker. Christian Ellis has struggled this year. Jack Gibbons has been better. Marte Mapu was great in the second half. Last week, obviously, that was pretty much garbage time. But I wonder if they do make a switch, if not only for the fact that they need to figure something out with Dalton Kincaid on the other side.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to watch how they go about it. I think one of the groups that I'm watching for New England is special teams, right? I mean, we have seen significant change when it comes to punt returns, just league wide this season. It is very different than it was a season ago. And we've seen it help New England. We certainly saw it help last week with Marcus Jones. So I'm curious, look, there's always the field position standpoint, and, can you always back them up against it? And can you find yourself in better field position because you're able to, have a punt or a kickoff return that gets you, close to the 50 or, well beyond, as we saw with Marcus Jones last week. So I'm curious if New England can take advantage of that and find some ways to really just benefit themselves, maybe beyond field position, but at the very least from a field position standpoint.
We saw it last week. It completely changed the game. Marcus Jones' house is won, and the game pretty much ended right there, right? It was all Patriots from then on. The last one I've got, you have to stop Josh Allen, and that's a tall task, and if you can't do that, you have to at least slow him down. And it starts with getting a pass rush on the interior. We talked about it on Wednesday. Your edge rushers are not going to get Josh Allen because he's just going to step up in the pocket, escape, and run or rip one down the field and kill you. So you need an interior rush. Milton Williams, he returned to practice on Friday, but injured during the week. It's an ankle injury. I'm sure that's going to slow him down a little bit. So Christian Barmore, can you be the game wrecker that you've been paid to be? And he's been awesome, right? The pressures might not be there, or the quarterback hits might not be there, but the pressures are there.
But
he's
the
been
pressures
held
are,
a million times, right? I can't even tell you how many holding penalties he's drawn that haven't been called. So can he be that guy again? Can he go out there and try to slow down Josh Allen, especially when his running mate, Milton Williams, might not be 100%?
Yeah, it's something that he's going to have to do because, as you said, they're not going to stop him. But can you slow him enough? I think the final thing that I'm watching is that it is in part that Buffalo run defense, because that's where they've been able to be gashed, and that's where the Patriots have an opportunity. As you said, we expect to see them running the football this week. But I'm I'm watching not just the Buffalo run D, but also just the play design that Josh McDaniels uses. As we saw some of last week, right? Like, it's not just like the hand the ball off to the back and run the football. There's some different play designs that he's super creative, and I think he'll find different ways to get different guys involved in this one. Like, how do we see Drake Maye factor into that this week? I think that's something to certainly watch for. Could we see, the running back group vary a little bit in their carries this week? I think that's another thing that I'll be curious to see, right? Like, do we see Travion Henderson have an increasing workload here as we move a little bit further into the season now that we're in October? He's a guy that is explosive. Can we find a different way to get the ball in his hands to exploit, which has been, a struggling run defense there in Buffalo?
Yeah, it's a big week for running back screens and flea flickers and bootlegs, like all the stops. You're pulling out all the stops this week against a Buffalo defense that you should be able to run the football on and is susceptible to making mistakes. So if you can force them into those mistakes, you have a chance to win this game.
All right. A little bit more straight ahead here on Foxborough Rush. We'll take a look at a player around the National Football League that, we both think needs to convert on 4th and long. Stick around. That is straight ahead on the other side. Welcome back into Foxborough Rush. Got to remind you of the time change coming up next week. Keagan and I will be hanging here at 10 a.m. on Monday. Yeah, exactly. Set the alarm, right? Like, on here, just set the alarm. Got to come back to Foxborough Rush, 10 a.m., not 1 p.m. I'm going to set my alarm too. I don't know about you, Keagan, but that's going to be like, oh, right. Got to get my stuff done early.
Yeah, it's nice. Come hang out with us at 10 a.m., finish up around 11, go out, do your shopping for the day. You're back by lunchtime. It's great.
See? There you go. New way to hang right here on Foxborough Rush. All right, so this is a new little segment for us, if you will, 4th and long, and the instruction was this from our esteemed producer. It was, give me someone around the league that has to convert because of some ailment, right, that they've been dealing with in weeks past, whether it would be a play on the field, whether it be an injury, whether it be, going up against someone that just absolutely clocked them, whatever the case may be. So I kind of laughed because I think we both saw it at the same exact time and we had the exact same response. Yeah. And that was, Lamar's out. Derrick Henry. Yeah. Derrick Henry. Last I checked, it was like, we watched him in Buffalo and it was just like the Derrick Henry show. And then they didn't even walk out with the win, which was mind-boggling, obviously. But look, this has to be his week for the Ravens. Goodness gracious. They can't sit there and lose another game, not with where they are as a franchise and everything that they want to accomplish this year. They have so many injuries. It's like they're starting to rival the 49ers on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
And beyond that, they're probably not going to have Lamar this week. He's not practicing again today. He hasn't practiced all week. So all of a sudden it's going to be Cooper Rush at quarterback in all likelihood, you would think, for the Ravens this weekend. And they've got to win this football game.
Yeah, I don't know how you look at Lamar Jackson and think Cooper Rush, that's the perfect backup. He brings the same stuff to the table because the offense completely changes. The only constant this week for the Baltimore Ravens is Derrick Henry. And unfortunately, he's been horrific for 3 weeks. Like this might be the worst 3-week stretch we've seen since his rookie year. So he needs to step up big time. I think that much is obvious. Like you said, we both immediately went to him straight away as soon as our guy Brendo asked us for a name. I pivoted a little bit because I had a second choice in mind, and that's Jayden Daniels. Coming off of an injury, coming off a week where the Commanders, for as inconsistent as they've looked this season, it started to look like this might just be who they are. The defense has regressed, substantially. The offense hasn't taken a step forward, even though, Deebo Samuel is now in the mix, and Terry McLaurin returned after missing most of the offseason. So can Jayden Daniels be the guy that we saw him during his rookie season? Can he elevate everybody around him, offense and defense included? We saw last year with the way they were able to possess the football, they were able to keep their defense off the field for long stretches of time, which is great for a unit that has a lot of veteran players. It has a lot of guys, the Bobby Wagners of the world. You don't want them on the field 50, 60 plays a game. So can Jayden Daniels really control the football game the way he did his rookie year, coming off of an injury, facing a really good team on the road in LA, playing the Chargers, who are coming off a loss as well, and they're going to want to get back on track. Right. So big week for him. Yeah. I think we find out a lot about his second season this week in LA.
Yeah, I think that's another one that, both of these teams, whether you look at the Commanders, or the Baltimore Ravens, are in a position where they probably got to find a way to win these games. And look, I know it's still early, right? Like we're at week 5, but sometimes it gets late early. Especially, when you went to the NFC Championship game, last year for the Commanders, and I know that they outkicked their coverage, or however you want to phrase it, right? Like they got to a place that nobody expected them to go, and a friend of mine does play-by-play there, and he was like, it was a magic carpet ride of a season, right? Like that's how he described it. But the reality is once something like that happens, all of a sudden your expectations are elevated from there on out. I mean, that's just the way it goes. And same thing for Baltimore. I mean, man, like they don't want to be sitting there at 1-4. 1-4? Not that the Houston Texans do either. So both of those teams have to find a way to win. But yeah, Jayden Daniels and Derrick Henry, we're looking at you.
Everyone involved needs a win this week. The teams of the guys we talked about, the teams that they're playing, the DMV in general, we're in like a 4-mile radius of the players we're talking about, but they all need to step forward, get back on the right track, and what better time than this week, against some good competition when their teams really, really need them.
Yeah, no time like the present. And in the future, we'll see you at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
That's right.
Monday morning. We'll have a Sunday night game to talk about. Enjoy the football.